Before we start, a quick note about what this channel is and what it isn't. This isn't a recap channel, and it's not a highlight reel. We're here for the parts of Panem that happen after the cameras turn away. The systems behind the games, the contracts hidden inside victory, the lives that keep unfolding long after the anthem ends. Each video on this channel is built to slow things down, to follow the logic the Capitol relies on, the details it hopes you won't connect, and the people who live with the consequences year after year. If that's the kind of Hunger Games analysis you're looking for, you're in the right place. Subscribing just means you'll keep a seat here when we move on to the next story. Now, let's start where Panem always wants you to stop paying attention. Haymitch Abernathy always has a bottle on the train in the victor's village, slumped at the table while Effie chirps about schedules and etiquette. You see that bottle and you think you know the story. Drunk mentor, comic relief, the victor who never sobered up. But here's the real question. What is he actually trying to drown? At face value, Haymitch is the sarcastic, unreliable adult in the room. The man from District 12 who's half drunk, half annoyed, and somehow still responsible for coaching children through the Hunger Games. You remember him falling off the stage, mocking Katniss and Peter, snapping at Effie. He looks more bothered by a hangover than by the reaping. So why does this mess of a man terrify the Capitol enough that they keep him under constant watch? Because before he was the drunk on the train, he was the boy who humiliated them on live TV. Haymitch won the 50th Hunger Games, the quarter quell where the Capitol doubled the tributes for extra spectacle. Twice the blood, twice the promise of a glorious victor, but instead of playing the arena the way they designed it, he read it. He found the force field, tested it, and then weaponized it. He used the Capitol's own technology to kill the final career tribute, turning their perfect system into the punchline. That part matters because Panem watched a teenager from a coal district expose the games as beatable, not by brute strength, by understanding the rules better than the people who wrote them. So if the Capitol kills victors who step out of line, why is Haymitch still alive after that? President Snow's answer was simple and cruel. He didn't kill Haymitch. He killed his mother, his younger brother, his girlfriend, quietly after the cameras were gone. The message was clear. You can live, but everything you care about belongs to us. There is a lot to uncover here, because from that moment on, every bottle in Haymitch's hand stops being just a joke. It becomes evidence of a long, ugly relationship between one victor and a government that can't afford to let him be sober, focused, and angry. Why does he mentor alone for 24 years, sending tribute after tribute to their deaths? Why does he swing between razor-sharp strategy and brutal apathy? Why does he stay in the victor's village, surrounded by empty houses and Capitol-grade comforts he never really uses? This is where we talk about the war the audience doesn't see. On the surface, Haymitch is the warning, win the games, end up broken. Underneath, he's the Capitol's most dangerous embarrassment, a living reminder that the arena can be beaten and that their retaliation never fully worked. So when you watch him lift that bottle, you have to ask, is this a man running from his past, or a man the Capitol never quite managed to silence? We're going to cover how that one blood-stained victory turned into decades of quiet rebellion. Winning is losing. Why Haymitch's victory was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Winning the Hunger Games earns you a mansion in Victor's village. At face value, that sounds incredible. No more tesserae, no more coal dust, no more reaping bowls with your name getting heavier every year. You think, money, safety, fame, the Capitol's ultimate promise. But here's the real question. If Haymitch won, why does his life look so much worse after the arena than before it? This is where we talk about the cost of surviving in a system that never lets you stop playing. Haymitch comes home from the 50th Games, a teenage victor, the only surviving tribute from District 12, besides a long-dead girl named Lucy Gray and a future one named Katniss. The train is full of champagne, cameras, and forced celebration, but waiting on the other side of that train is a different kind of arena, one where President Snow controls every door. So why does Haymitch drink this much? Why does he push every new tribute away with sarcasm and cruelty? Why does Snow go after his mother, his younger brother, his girlfriend, everyone he loves, rather than just having him disappear? There is a lot to uncover here, and none of it fits the Capitol's fantasy of the happy victor. The reason is simple and brutal. In Panem, victory is not the end of the games. It's the beginning of a life sentence. Haymitch doesn't retire, he doesn't heal. He's drafted into permanent service. Every year, he gets back on that same train, headed to the same capital, to prep 2 more kids from his district that he knows he will probably watch die. 24 years of that before Katniss and Peter. That's not a reward, that's psychological warfare. Victor's village is supposed to be proof that the system works, but for Haymitch it turns into a haunted cul-de-sac. 12 houses in the books, all with full power, and stocked pantries, and only one actually lived in. His. Katniss walks into his home and finds it rotting, bottles everywhere, furniture wrecked. That part matters because it shows you what luxury does when you combine it with isolation, surveillance, and forced mentorship. The games don't stop when the cannon fires. They move into the victor's empty kitchen. They ride the train with him every year. They stand next to him on the platform at every reaping, while children stare up at the one man who made it, not realizing he's still trapped. His relationship with District 12 becomes another arena. They depend on the hope he represents, while he knows exactly how rigged the system really is. And this is where the emotional stakes kick in. Understanding Haymitch isn't just trivia about a side character. It rewires how you read the entire rebellion. His survival proves something the Capitol never wanted anyone to see. That the games have a crack, that their power can be outfought, and that even a broken victor can still be dangerous. So how did a sarcastic boy from District 12 manage to expose that flaw on live television? And what did Snow do to make sure no one ever tried it again? Our angle today, Haymitch as the Capitol's failed project. To answer that, we need to flip the usual framing. We're not asking how Haymitch survived the games. We're asking how he became the Capitol's worst-case scenario. A victor who walks out of the arena, refuses to be tamed, and quietly starts turning their own system against them. At face value, Haymitch is everything the Capitol says it wants. A handsome teenage victor from a poor district, winning an especially brutal quarter quell where they doubled the tributes. Twice the blood, twice the spectacle, twice the hope. He should have been a propaganda goldmine, a reminder that even District 12 can make it if you just try hard enough in the games. But here's the real question. What happens when the poster boy figures out the trick behind the poster? This is where we talk about our angle. We're not just retelling his tragic backstory or listing trauma points. We're going to cover every way the Capitol tries to control Haymitch, through reward, through fear, through isolation, and every way he slips out of their grasp. From the moment he weaponizes that force field, his relationship with the Capitol stops being victor and benefactor. It becomes chess. Long game. No clean moves. Remember what he actually did in that arena. He didn't just outfight careers. He outthought the arena itself. He studies the environment, notices the force field, and then uses the Capitol's own design to kill the final career tribute. That part matters because it's the first time a tribute turns the arena from cage into weapon on live television. He exposes the truth. If you can read the system, you can break it, or at least bend it in ways the Capitol didn't script. Snow's response tells you everything about power in Panem. He doesn't execute Haymitch publicly. That would create a martyr. He kills Haymitch's mother, his younger brother, his girlfriend, everyone who gives him a reason to hope. It's punishment and policy in one move. The message is clear. Your victory belongs to us. Your future belongs to us. Your love belongs to us. Any attempt to outplay the games will be answered off-screen, in your real life. So why doesn't Haymitch just break completely? On the surface, he does. He drinks, he mocks, he stumbles through the reaping and mentoring. But there is a lot to uncover here. The apathy, the addiction, the cruelty towards his own tributes. Those are not just weaknesses, they're armor. If he looks useless, the capital underestimates him. If he looks broken, they stop trying to fix him. Underneath that, he's still the teenager who read an arena better than any game maker. He spends 24 years watching patterns, sponsors, mutations, and victors. He learns how the capital thinks, he learns where the cameras aren't, and when Katniss and Peter arrive, he finally sees a way to cash in on that long game. Here's the twist the capital never planned for. They need victors to sell the promise that the games are survivable, that someone from your district might win the mansion, and the feast, and the future. But Haymitch's existence proves something far more dangerous, that a victor can become a rebel strategist, that the same mind that solved an arena can help solve a revolution. And once you see him that way, every bottle, every insult, every whispered plan in the Quarter Quell looks different. So how does the capital's failed project become one of the architects of their downfall? And what exactly was Haymitch doing behind the scenes of that second arena? Roadmap through the ruins, from teen tribute to rebel architect. So to answer that question, we need a roadmap through the ruins of Haymitch's life, because his story doesn't move in a straight line. It loops back through the arena, through the train, through that empty house in Victor's village, over and over. First, Phase 1, the games that should have turned him into a capital trophy. The 50th Hunger Games, the second Quarter Quell. At face value, the twist sounds simple. Twice the tributes, twice the spectacle. 48 children instead of 24. But here's the real question. Why did doubling the bodies end up creating the one victor Snow could never fully control? This is where we talk about the arena itself. Haymitch walks into what looks like a beautiful forest with a cliff and a shining blue sky. He's a sarcastic 17-year-old from District 12 who's supposed to die early so the careers can have their show. Instead, he starts reading the arena the way Katniss later reads a forest. He notices the force field edge, the way things bounce, the pattern of the hovercraft. And then, he does the unforgivable thing. He uses the capital's own design against them. He lures the last career to the cliff and lets the force field kill her on live TV. That part matters because it turns a victory into an insult. Phase 2 is the retaliation. Snow cannot let a district kid prove the arena is fake, that the games are engineered and therefore exploitable. So he does what he always does when hope gets dangerous. He personalizes the punishment. After the tour, Haymitch comes home to find his mother, his younger brother, and his girlfriend all murdered. No explanation, just a message. The relationship is clear. You embarrass the capital erases your future. Phase 3. We're going to cover the mentor years, 24 reapings, 48 tributes, 0 surviving students until Katniss and Peter. From the outside, he's the drunk who falls off the stage and barely remembers their names. But why the cruelty? Why the alcohol? Why push them away when he's their only hope? Because for Haymitch, apathy is armor. If he pretends not to care, the capital has less to use against him. If he's already broken, there's nothing left for Snow to break. Then, Phase 4, the strategist hiding in plain sight. You see it the moment he tests Katniss and Peter on the train. Will they listen? Will they perform? Can they work as a unit? Off-screen, he's building relationships with other victors, mapping out the Quarter Quell arena, coordinating that rescue plan with Plutarch and District 13. There is a lot to uncover here about why his mind becomes the backbone of the rebellion's logistics. And near the end, we're going to ask a speculative question. What if this had gone differently? What if Haymitch had shattered completely after the murders? Or if the capital had accidented him long before Katniss was reaped? No drunk mentor on a hill, no force field expert, no quiet architect. How different does Panem look if the one victor who understood the system best never lived long enough to help break it? That's the path we're about to walk, through every bad decision, every brutal choice, and every hidden calculation. Welcome to Victor's Village, where we read between the cannons, and if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but why are we spending this much time on one drunk mentor from District 12? This is where we talk about what this channel actually is. We live in the Victor's Village space, not the shiny Capitol Tour version with the sweeping drone shots over identical mansions. The uncomfortable version, the one where you walk past Haymitch's rotting house and ask why a supposed reward looks like a haunted monument to the games. We're going to cover the psychology underneath the parties, the politics underneath the parades, and the quiet calculations characters make just to stay alive. So if you're new here, at face value it might look like we're just recapping Panem history. But here's the real question. Why does a sarcastic teenager who won the 50th Hunger Games end up as the most dangerous strategist in the rebellion? That part matters because it exposes what the capital was actually building with things like Victor's Village, Quarter Quells, and carefully curated hope. We don't stop at Haymitch drinks because he's sad. We ask why the capital lets him stay that way. We look at the relationship between his public breakdowns and Snow's need to prove that even an unbreakable victor can be turned into a warning. The same way, in our Katniss deep dive, we didn't just walk through the plot, we pulled apart why her volunteering in District 12 was such a statistical anomaly the capital had to spin into a love story to keep control of the narrative. We've already gone into President Snow's roses and why he weaponizes scent as a mask for decay. We've broken down the Quarter Quells as constitutional booby traps, written decades in advance to give the capital emergency levers when the games start to fail. There is a lot to uncover here when you realize the second Quell floods the districts with extra tesserae, the third Quell cannibalizes its own victors, and all of that is framed as random tradition instead of long-term design. Haymitch sits right in the middle of that web. He's the only victor from 12 before Katniss and Peter, the mentor who survives 24 years of sending children back into the arena, and the one person who has read the system from both sides of the force field. So, if obsessive in-universe breakdowns are your thing, if you want to know not just what happened in the games, but why the capital made those choices, stick around to the end. We're going to finish with a speculative "What if Haymitch died in his quell?" segment that completely rewrites the odds of rebellion. But to get there, we have to go back. Before the Mockingjay, before the berries, before the train to Victor's Village ever stopped at Katniss's door, to the single most rigged games before her time, a Quarter Quell where the capital doubled the tributes, underestimated one boy from District 12, and never forgave him for what he did to their arena. The 50th Quarter Quell, when the capital doubled the death count. The capital doesn't just turn the dial up on cruelty. Sometimes it rips the dial off and throws it in your face. Haymitch's games are proof. We're in year 50 now, the second Quarter Quell. The rules drop, not 24 tributes, 48. Every district sending 4 children instead of 2. And here's the real question. Why does a regime that already owns the arena need to double the bodies it throws into it? At face value, the official explanation sounds almost academic. The capital claims it's honoring history, reminding the districts that for every capital citizen who died in the dark days, 2 rebels fell. So they say, this is balance, commemoration, a numbers lesson written in blood. But that part matters because it shows you the relationship they want the districts to have with memory, not grief, not understanding, just an annual math problem in terror. Underneath that, there is a lot to uncover here. The quarter quells are pressure washers for the system. When the games start to feel routine, when the horror risks becoming background noise, Snow hits a reset button. New twist, new trauma, fresh nightmares. You're not just watching kids die, you're watching the rules of the world change under their feet, which is exactly what keeps every district guessing, every parent afraid, and every potential rebel asking, what else can they do to us? So what does the capital build for this anniversary bloodbath? An arena that looks almost generous. A wide green valley, rolling hills, a ring of forest, clean water, fruit trees, mild weather. It's beautiful in that curated capital way that always feels a little too perfect. But the real edge of the arena isn't the tree line. It's the invisible force field wrapping the whole thing, humming just out of sight. Step too close, throw something too far, and it bounces or breaks you. This is where we talk about design as a weapon. The lushness is the bait, the force field is the trap. The arena promises abundance, hope, even the illusion that if you can just run far enough you'll hit safety. Instead, you hit a wall you never agreed to. That's the same contract every district lives under. Apparent freedom inside boundaries you're not allowed to see. Drop Haymitch Abernathy into that. A sharp-mouthed, observant District 12 teen who spent his life watching people in power break promises and then act offended when you notice. He's not the career archetype the capital loves. He's wiry, sarcastic, more interested in reading the room than showing off a sword arm. And now he's trapped in the most overcrowded arena yet, where 48 tributes means alliances aren't optional. Their survival. So why does this matter for who he becomes? Because chaos is the one thing the capital can't fully script. With that many tributes, with that much terrain, the arena becomes a social experiment in fear. Haymitch learns fast that the real game isn't just killing, it's understanding how the capital thinks the game should go, and then refusing to play his assigned role. And the moment he realizes the arena itself can be turned against them, that's the moment a victor is born. The capital will never forgive. A boy from 12, who Haymitch was before the arena broke him, before we watch him turn the arena itself into a weapon. We need to rewind. Because that force field move, it doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from a boy in District 12 who's already been training for the games his whole life, without ever touching a weapon. At face value, Cree Games' Haymitch is almost a footnote in the books. A throwaway line about a girlfriend, a mention of a mother and younger brother. But here's the real question. What kind of person do you have to be? In a district with no career culture and no real hope of winning, to walk into a doubled Cryptude's quarter quell and still manage to joke, to sass, to notice the details that everyone else misses. This is where we talk about District 12 before the cameras turn on him. You're in the seam, in extreme poverty, where tesserae is the difference between your sibling eating or not. There's no training center, no polished mentors running combat drills. Your preparation is watching kids you vaguely know get shipped off and never come back. The message is clear. The games are a death sentence, not a promise. So if you're Haymitch, what do you have? Your brain, your sarcasm, a stubborn refusal to let authority have the last word. We're going to cover that attitude because that part matters because it survives the arena. Katniss describes him later as caustic, sharp, always testing people. You can reverse engineer that. As a teenager, he's almost certainly the kid who mouths off under his breath, when the peacekeepers pass, who turns capital propaganda into a dark joke before it can crush you. That dark sense of humor is a pressure valve in a district where pressure is constant. And then, the relationships. The books tell us he has a mother, a younger brother, a girlfriend. That's not window dressing. In a place where most people are just trying to keep their own families alive, he's tied to 3 separate points of vulnerability. He doesn't just have his own life to lose, he has people the capital can hurt. That's the quiet, awful math he's carrying onto the train. So what does he expect heading into the 50th? The odds are worse than usual. Twice the tributes, same single victor. If you're a boy from 12, you probably assume you're dead before the anthem finishes on the first night. And weirdly, that expectation becomes a kind of freedom. If you're going to die anyway, why not take risks? Why not test the arena walls, push boundaries, refuse to play the grateful tribute role the capital scripted for you? There is a lot to uncover here, because the irony is brutal. The exact traits that make him difficult in 12, his defiance, his curiosity, his refusal to play nice with power, are the tools he'll use to read the arena and outsmart the capital's design. The system trains him to be disposable and accidentally forges its most dangerous critic. But if this is who he is before the arena breaks him, what happens when that sarcastic, stubborn kid actually wins and the capital decides to make an example out of everything he loves? Reading the arena, how Haymitch turned curiosity into a weapon. So when you drop that sarcastic, stubborn kid into an arena built to chew him up, what happens? You expect chaos, panic, maybe a few flashy kills to prove he belongs there. Haymitch does the opposite. From the opening seconds, he refuses the script the capital has written for him. While half the field sprints toward the cornucopia and the guaranteed bloodbath, he hangs back. He moves for cover, not glory. At face value, that looks cowardly in a world that rewards spectacle. But here's the real question. What if the smartest move in the games is to survive the first 5 minutes by not playing the part they want? This is where we talk about information as a weapon. Haymitch prioritizes watching over winning. He studies who rushes the center, who hangs back, which careers cooperate, which tributes panic. Every alliance, every scream, every cannon is data. While other tributes burn calories and show off for the cameras, he's building a mental map of threats, resources, and patterns. The capital wants a slaughter, he treats it as reconnaissance. Because for victors like Haymitch, the arena isn't just a battlefield, it's a puzzle. There is a lot to uncover here, if you're willing to look past the obvious. Why is the terrain arranged this way? Why do certain areas stay eerily quiet? Why do the game makers keep steering you back towards specific zones? Every anomaly, every repeated mutt attack, every convenient lightning strike is a clue about what the capital is hiding behind the curtain. In the 50th games, that curtain is the force field. Haymitch doesn't stumble into it. He notices it. The way thrown objects vanish at the edge and never quite fall. The unnatural stillness of the boundary, where wind seems to hesitate. The subtle way the environment repels movement, as if the world itself is saying, "Not here." Most tributes see an invisible wall and think, "Barrier." Haymitch sees a system and thinks, "Weakness," so he tests it. A rock here, a branch there, he watches how they rebound, how energy transfers, how the field doesn't just block, it reflects. And then he does the one thing the capital never expects from a poor boy from District 12. He turns their own design against them. When the final career comes for him, he positions himself, times the throw, and lets the arena do the killing. The capital built the weapon. He simply aims it. That part matters because we see the same arena reading later with Katniss and Beatty in the 75th games. Beatty maps the clock structure, Katniss tracks the repeating disasters, and together they weaponize the lightning against the force field. Different arena, same mindset. We're going to cover the rebellion later, but you can already see the lineage of strategic thinking from 12. Watch first, understand the system, then break it. So in a world where the capital controls everything, what does it mean that a boy from the poorest district figured out something they didn't want him to see? It means the games accidentally taught him their greatest secret. Every system has a flaw, and once Haymitch learns that in the arena, the real question becomes what he does with that knowledge after he wins, and how the capital chooses to punish him for it. The force field trick, the moment Haymitch embarrassed the capital on live TV, so when we finally get to that last day in the arena, you already know something the capital doesn't want to admit. Haymitch has been studying, not the other tributes, the arena itself. The setup is brutally simple. Haymitch versus the final career. Both of them are half dead, limping, bleeding, pushed all the way to the edge of the arena where the ground just stops. You can almost hear the capital announcer gearing up for the standard heroic finish. Right. One last charge, one last dramatic kill. Cue the anthem. At face value, that's what the games promise every year. A clean, cinematic ending. But here's the real question. What happens when the tribute refuses to play the ending the way it's written? Haymitch has already figured out that the shimmering edge of the world isn't just a pretty barrier. It's a force field. He's seen a piece of debris hit it and bounce back. That part matters because the capital believes only the game makers fully understand the arena's rules. Haymitch quietly proves that's wrong. So instead of backing away from the edge in fear, he does the opposite. He lures the career with him. This is where we talk about mechanics. The career has an axe, the clear advantage in a straightforward fight. The capital is expecting a final clash, maybe a noble sacrifice. Instead, Haymitch times everything around one motion. He dodges just enough, at just the right angle, so when the axe is thrown, it doesn't bury itself in him. It sails past. It hits the invisible wall, and then the arena itself throws the weapon back into the career's skull. Who killed that tribute? Technically Haymitch, but visually, the arena did. The capital's own technology became the murder weapon on live TV. There is a lot to uncover here because the whole relationship between Panem and the games is built on the idea that the capital controls the environment. Absolutely. The arena is supposed to be their toy box, their God mode battlefield where tributes only react, never direct. Instead, a boy from District 12 turns their carefully controlled system into a liability. He doesn't just survive the arena, he uses its physics against its creators. Capital viewers aren't stupid. They see the blood, sure, but they also see the glitch. If one tribute can learn the arena's rules and subvert them, what else could be learned? What else could be turned back on the capital? And this is the unforgivable part for Snow. Haymitch doesn't just win. He makes the games look beatable. He proves the system has seams, cracks, loopholes. Once you've seen a victor weaponize the arena itself, can you ever fully believe in the capital's omnipotence again? That's the question Snow is really answering when he decides what happens to Haymitch's family after the cameras cut out. Because if the arena can be turned against the capital once, what's to stop someone from doing it again? On a much bigger stage. 9. Snow's revenge. Why the capital killed everyone Haymitch loved. So if the arena can be turned against the capital once, what do you do with the victor who proved it? You don't just send him home with a trophy. You turn his whole life into a warning. Haymitch steps off the train a hero of District 12. Mansion in Victor's village. Food, power, a bed that isn't stuffed with straw. On paper, it's everything the games promise. Safety, status, a future. But here's the real question. What happens once the cameras move on and Snow has time to think about what this sarcastic kid actually did to his arena? The answer is quiet. No public execution, no dramatic trial. His mother dies, his younger brother dies, his girlfriend dies. Different accidents, different illnesses, spaced out just enough that you could pretend it's coincidence if you really wanted to. The books make it clear, this is not random cruelty. This is policy. At face value, it looks almost inefficient. Why not just kill the problematic victor and be done with it? That's where we're going to cover Snow's logic, because there is a lot to uncover here. If Haymitch conveniently dies right after exposing the force field, every district starts asking the same question. Are the games rigged? Did he break a rule we weren't told about? The illusion of fairness is fragile, and Snow can't afford to crack it. So instead, he keeps Haymitch alive and destroys everything around him. That part matters because it sends two messages at once. To Haymitch, you are not untouchable. To every other victor watching, your family is collateral if you embarrass the capital. It turns the reward of Victor's village into a pressure point. Your big house on the hill. It's now a glass cage where everyone you love is clearly visible and clearly vulnerable. This is where we talk about psychology as a weapon. Haymitch learns brutally fast that any attachment is a knife the capital can twist. Mother, brother, girlfriend, each one removed until the pattern is undeniable. What do you do with that knowledge? You stop forming relationships, you drink, you push people away before Snow can hurt them for real. The drunk mentor act that Katniss meets isn't just weakness, it's strategy through self-destruction. And Snow repeats this playbook. Finnick's loved ones are used to control him. Johanna's family is killed. Katniss watches her sister and district burned for becoming a symbol. Different districts, different games, same core move. Victors are too visible to kill outright, so the capital punishes them through the people who never stepped into the arena. So when you see Haymitch alone in that decaying Victor's village house, it isn't just apathy. It's the logical endpoint of a system that turns love into leverage. The next step is asking how he ever finds a reason to care again, and what happens when two new tributes refuse to let him stay numb. From victor to prisoner, how Haymitch's reward became a cage. So when you see Haymitch alone in that decaying Victor's village house, the first thing to ask isn't, why is he such a mess? It's who built the cage he's rotting in. Win the games, earn a mansion on the hill, hot water, steady food, a direct phone line to the capital. At face value, it's luxury, but walk through it in your head. Row after row of identical houses, all powered, all waiting, all empty. For decades, there's just one occupant, Haymitch Abernathy. One victor, 11 vacant tombs for people who never made it home. Here's the real question. Why does the capital keep that whole suburb running for a single drunk on a porch? Because the emptiness is the point. Every child in the seam can look up and see what they'll never touch. Every parent can see that even success means isolation, surveillance, and being physically removed from your own district. That part matters because Victor's village isn't a neighborhood, it's a monument to scarcity. One survivor, dozens of dead. A ghost town built to showcase a single haunted prize. And then there's the fine print on that prize, the mentor contract. Once you win, you don't retire. You sign up for a life sentence. Every year, Haymitch is hauled back to the capital. He watches 2 more names pulled from District 12. He has to smile for Caesar Flickerman, sit in strategy sessions, and train kids he knows are statistically doomed. We're going to cover the politics of mentoring later, but this is where we talk about the personal cost. He isn't just remembering his games, he's forced to reenact them annually. from the other side of the glass. Can he refuse? No. That's the cruel symmetry. The capital couldn't kill him in the arena, so they turn his victory into ongoing torture. 24 years of sending tributes to die before Katniss and Peeta even arrive. 24 years of watching trains pull in and coffins go home. The games never end for a victor. The arena just changes set dressing. Meanwhile, the capital turns his suffering into programming. On TV, Haymitch is the drunk, bitter mentor who still shows up. He stumbles on stage, slurs his words, mocks the whole spectacle. And the capital beams it out anyway. Why? Because his presence answers a quiet question in every district. If it's so horrible, why do victors keep playing? The propaganda answer is simple. Even broken, they obey. But there is a lot to uncover here. The drinking, the sharp cruelty, the apparent apathy. Those aren't just weakness, they're choices, tools, armor. The real mystery is what he's hiding behind them. And what happens when 2 tributes from District 12 start prying that armor off? 24 years, 48 kids. The math of Haymitch's guilt. 24 years between Haymitch's victory at the 50th Games and the 74th. That's 48 kids from District 12 whose names were read, whose hands he shook, and whose deaths he watched. At face value, that's just numbers. 2 tributes a year, every year, because the capital says so. But here's the real question. What does it do to a person when the system forces them to escort 48 children to an arena they themselves barely escaped? You're not just thinking about the games anymore, you're thinking about a conveyor belt of coffins. Picture the pattern. Every reaping, Haymitch stands on that stage in the square. He's the only victor, the supposed success story of the district. The camera loves him. The crowd doesn't. A second. You watch the panic in the crowd, the way the parents stiffen, the way the peacekeepers close in. And Haymitch already knows the odds for District 12 aren't bad. They're non-existent. Back when he won, the Quarter Quell doubled the tributes. The arena was a forest ringed by a force field that he weaponized. He turned the capital's own design against them. That part matters, because from Snow's perspective, this kid didn't just survive. He embarrassed the system, so the retaliation is surgical. His mother, his brother, his girlfriend, all murdered after the games. The message is clear. Care about people, and we will turn that into your punishment. Now fast forward through those 24 years. Every dead tribute becomes another piece of evidence in Haymitch's head that his own victory was a mistake. He wasn't chosen by fate. He slipped through a crack in the capital's armor, and they spent the rest of his life proving there should have been no survivors from District 12 at all. That's survivor's guilt with a political agenda attached. So why does he show up drunk? Why does he insult his own tributes, vanish on the train, pretend not to care whether they live or die? Because he's already tried caring. Snow killed everyone he loved. Then the arena killed everyone he tried to help. We're going to cover his strategy later, but this is where we talk about the emotional calculus. If you never bond with your tributes, their deaths can't be used against you, or so he tells himself. And then Katniss and Peeta happen, 2 tributes who volunteer and take burns and beatings for each other. 2 tributes who refuse to play the romance exactly the way the capital wants. For the first time in decades, Haymitch sees a pair who might actually break the pattern, which is hopeful, but also terrifying. Because if they win, the capital will punish them. If they lose, he's just added 2 more ghosts he let himself care about. So when he chooses to invest in them, to plan beyond a single arena, he's not just mentoring, he's gambling everything he's built to protect himself, and reopening the wound Snow taught him never to touch. The bottle, the barbs, the act, Haymitch's apathy as armor. So when he opens that door again for Katniss and Peeta, he doesn't walk through it sober. He staggers in with a bottle. On the train, at face value, Haymitch is a disaster. He's passed out in his own vomit, slurring, barely looking at the tributes whose lives he's supposedly responsible for. He mocks their chances, waves off their fear, and seems more worried about whether his glass is full than whether they survive the games. You watch that and think, this man is useless. That's the point. Because here's the real question. Is this apathy or is this a test? When Peter knocks the drink out of his hand, when Katniss drives a knife into the table, Haymitch doesn't just sober up. He recalibrates. Suddenly, he's interested. He lays out the brutal math of sponsors, the reality that charm and defiance are weapons. He's been waiting to see if there's anything in them worth sharpening. If they had just sat there, quiet and obedient, he probably would have stayed drunk. This is where we talk about alcohol not just as self-destruction, but as strategy. There is a lot to uncover here. Yes, the bottle is a coping mechanism. After the 50th Games and Snow's retaliation, how else does a human being live with that level of loss? But it's also camouflage. A drunk victor is safe to the Capitol. Harmless. A joke. A man whose talent is drinking is never going to be read as a political threat. Even when he's quietly building relationships, tracking patterns, and memorizing every arena the way other people memorize recipes. That part matters because Haymitch's real weapon is his mind. The Capitol already saw what happens when he's fully present. He finds the force field, he turns their own design against them, he exposes the games as solvable. So he leans into a performance that tells Snow, I'm broken now, you won. The reason it works is that it's half true. His cruelty is part of that armor. When he snaps at Katniss, when he calls Peter's hope naive, when he dismisses their chances in front of them, he's doing two things at once. First, he's hardening them. If they can't handle his contempt, they can't handle the Capitol's. Second, he's protecting himself. If he is the villain in their story, if they die hating him, it hurts less than losing 2 more children who believed he cared. It's a preemptive strike against grief. But the act keeps cracking. He sends bread at exactly the right moment. He reads the arena's hazards before anyone else. He tracks every cannon, every parachute, every alliance. Katniss only sees pieces of this, but you can feel the pattern. The drunk in the corner somehow always knows where the cameras will cut. So the real question becomes, what happens when the Capitol realizes the joke isn't on Haymitch at all? It's on them. Mentor in name only. How Haymitch secretly prepares Katniss and Peter. So when the Capitol starts to realize the joke might be on them, Haymitch does something very dangerous. He starts taking his job as mentor seriously. At face value, his early strategy for Katniss and Peter looks lazy. He tells them, stay together, present a united front, don't pull focus from each other. But here's the real question. Why is a man who won his games with a force field twist suddenly obsessed with public unity instead of combat drills? Because he understands the real arena isn't just the forest, it's the cameras, the sponsors, the narrative the Capitol is hungry to sell. This is where we talk about the star-crossed lovers. On the surface, it's a cheesy romance angle, a convenient excuse for Peter's confession and Katniss's confused feelings. Underneath, it's a weapon. Haymitch knows one lone victor from a poor district is forgettable. A tragic relationship. That part matters because it forces the Capitol to care. It creates a story the audience will protect, and that protection converts into parachutes. So we're going to cover what he actually trains them to do. He doesn't waste time trying to turn Katniss into a career. He prioritizes sponsor appeal over brute force training. He drills them on holding hands during the opening ceremony, on selling their chemistry, on leaning into Caesar Flickerman's questions instead of fighting them. When Effie is focused on table manners, Haymitch is focused on camera manners. He's teaching them that in these games, performance is armor. Notice how much of his training happens off the official schedule. He critiques their interviews, rewrites their lines, and pushes Katniss to stop scowling and start playing to the crowd. When she twirls in the dress and becomes the girl on fire, that's not an accident. That's Haymitch understanding that the Capitol doesn't reward skill, it rewards spectacle. The better their relationship with the audience, the more leverage he has once the arena closes in. And then, once they're inside, you see the payoff. The bread from District 11 after Rue's death, the burn ointment when Katniss is nearly out of the game, the feast gift that nudges her to go after Peter's medicine. Each parachute is a sentence in the story he's writing from the outside. He's not just sending supplies, he's sending instructions. Good, that kiss worked. Do more of that. Yes, honor Rue. The districts are watching. He spends sponsors not on random comfort, but on moments that steer behavior. His harshness is part of that steering. Why does he snap at Katniss for impulsive moves? Why does he mock her when she wants to lash out? Because he knows the Capitol will weaponize every emotional misstep. He pushes her to ask, every time, how does this look on camera? It's brutal, but it's survival. He learned to read arena patterns, to see alliances as temporary tools, to use the Capitol's expectations against them. Back then, he weaponized a force field. Now he weaponizes a love story. The Capitol thinks he's just keeping them alive for another victor's crown. He's actually training them to break the game itself. The most dangerous mind in Panem? Haymitch versus the arena designers. And here's where you realize something. If Katniss is the spark that blows up the arena, Haymitch is the one who first figured out you could point the arena at the Capitol in the first place. Back in the 50th games, he doesn't win by being the strongest or the cruelest. He wins by realizing the arena itself is a weapon. At face value, that force field is just a boundary, a rule. Go too far, you die. But Haymitch watches the way the axe bounces, calculates the angle, and turns the Capitol's own tech into a killing blow. Fast forward to the 75th, and Katniss does the same thing on a bigger scale, firing an arrow into the force field to break the dome. Different arena, same idea. The system is unstable if you hit it in the right place. That part matters because it tells you how his mind works. He doesn't just play the games, he studies the people running them. He understands game maker psychology in a way most victors never get the chance, or never dare to do. They crave spectacle. They fear boredom more than blood. They will intervene to protect the narrative before they protect any tribute. So Haymitch's strategy is always, give them just enough story to keep their hands busy while he's working somewhere they're not looking. This is where we talk about his off-screen planning in Catching Fire. On camera, he's the drunk mentor muttering threats and advice. Off camera, he's coordinating with Plutarch, with other victors, with District 13, turning what's supposed to be a slaughter into an extraction mission. We're going to cover the heist angle of that in more detail later, but notice the pattern. He reads the arena as a machine, the Capitol as an audience, and the head game maker as a collaborator who can be flipped. And he doesn't just read arenas, he reads people. He understands Snow's obsession with control, the Capitol audience's hunger for romance and redemption, and Katniss's instinct to protect the people she loves. He knows that if he pushes Peter and Katniss into a love story, the Capitol will cling to that promise of hope. He knows that if Snow feels that story slipping, he'll overreact. And he knows Katniss will always choose the move that saves someone else, even if it breaks the rules of the games. So here's the real question. If Haymitch had been born in the Capitol, would he have been a top game maker, designing arenas instead of breaking them? Or is his genius specifically forged by oppression, the product of a boy from District 12 who learned that every promise from the capital is a trap, every rule has a weakness, and every system can be turned against its maker. Because once you see him that way, the relationship between Haymitch and the games changes. He's not just surviving them, he's studying them, waiting for the moment when one broken victor can help bring the whole thing down. Unbreakable core. The loyalty Haymitch never lets the capital see. And once you see him that way, something else clicks into place. Haymitch isn't just anti-capital. Here's the real question. If the capital killed his family, destroyed his future, and turned him into a public joke, why does he keep showing up for a district that can't save him? The answer is in his pattern. Year after year, he makes choices that help 12 even when they drag him deeper into danger. He risks sponsors on long-shot tributes, mouths off to capital officials, and then, when Katniss shows up with that flaming dress and that attitude, he doesn't shut it down. He backs it. Hard. At face value, he's just doing his job. Mentor sends gifts, Mentor gives advice, Mentor drinks himself senseless between trains. But there is a lot to uncover here. He doesn't send parachutes to make tributes grateful, he sends them to change the odds for his district. Bread for Katniss when she's starving in the arena. Burn medicine that keeps her alive long enough to become a symbol. Those aren't neutral choices. That part matters because every sponsor gift is a public statement about whose story deserves to continue. And then we hit the berries. The moment that should have gotten Katniss and Peter executed becomes, somehow, a twisted love story the capital can sell. Who does that work? Haymitch. He spends that victory tour running interference, smoothing over Katniss's defiance, coaching her on how to make Snow believe it was romance, not rebellion. He's protecting their image, but really, he's protecting District 12's only living victors from a president who already murdered everyone Haymitch ever loved. You feel the risk there, right? This is where we talk about the quarter quell. Publicly, only one victor can walk out. Privately, Haymitch is working with Plutarch, District 13, and a whole network of rebels to save as many of 12's tributes as possible. He chooses allies in the arena based on one priority: keep Katniss alive, keep Peter alive if he can, and by extension, keep 12's hope alive. When he lets Peter be captured instead of Katniss, it looks brutal. But through his lens, the Mockingjay is the only shot the district has at ending the games at all. So how does he hide this loyalty from the capital? By weaponizing the exact things they expect from a broken victor. Care shows up as sarcasm, rebellion shows up as laziness. Strategic planning hides inside drunken rambling. If you underestimate him, that's the point. The capital can wreck his body, his reputation, his house in Victor's village, but they never touch the one decision he keeps making: keep fighting, quietly, for 12. The question is, what happens when that quiet loyalty finally has a target and a spark big enough to burn the capital back? Book Haymitch versus movie Haymitch. What the adaptation softens. And this is where we talk about something the movies almost hide in plain sight. You're watching this broken, funny mentor in Victor's village, and you think, okay, tragic backstory, drinks too much, still kind of charming. But here's the real question. What happens to Haymitch when you put the book version next to the film version and really compare the damage? At face value, the movies give you the headline: he's a victor from the second quarter quell, he drinks, he mentors, he's bitter. The books hand you the fine print the capital would rather you miss. In the text, we actually see his games. We see a teenage Haymitch using the arena's force field, counting timing, weaponizing the environment against the capital's design. He doesn't just win, he embarrasses the system on live TV. The reason that part matters is what comes next. Snow has his mother, his younger brother, and his girlfriend murdered. Quietly, deliberately. That's not just trauma, that is a lifelong death threat. The films only imply that level of retaliation in a line or two. You blink, and it's gone. So why soften it? Because once you sit with the book version, Haymitch isn't just the drunk comic relief on the train. He's the boy who learned that outsmarting the games means the capital will crawl into your home district and erase everyone you love. Suddenly, his don't get attached mentoring style stops being a quirk and becomes a survival rule. In the movies, Woody Harrelson's performance leans into humor, timing a weird rough-edged charm. He insults Katniss, he bickers with Peter, but you still want to hang out with him in that decaying Victor's village kitchen. The books are much harsher. The alcohol isn't a running gag. It's constant. The house is filthy, the self-hatred is explicit, and his cruelty can be cutting in a way the films only hint at. 24 years of mentoring failures sit on his shoulders. That's 48 dead kids he had to prep, sell, and then watch die. Here's the pattern interrupt. In the novels, Haymitch is not a good mentor who drinks. He's a man who has decided the only way to live with the games is to pretend he doesn't care if you live or die. So what do we lose when the adaptation softens that? You lose the scale of his failure record. The movies condense his past into a vibe. The books make you feel every year he rides that train back to 12 alone. You lose the sense that his alcoholism is not just addiction, but an ongoing relationship with the capital's punishment. Every bottle is a reminder that they can't kill him, so they'll let him do it slowly. But the films also get some crucial pieces right. His sharp intelligence is visible from the first games. He reads Katniss instantly, spots Peter's angle, and understands the capital media machine in a way no one else from their district does. His disgust with capital excess, vomit pills, parties, the way victors are paraded, is all over Harrelson's face. You see the man who knows the promise of victory is a scam. Understanding the book Haymitch resharpens all of that. Suddenly, every joke has teeth. Every moment of kindness towards Katniss and Peter is a decision to break his own rule and care again. And that sets up the next step. What happens when this man, who swore never to give the capital another reason to notice him, starts engineering a plan to tear their games apart from the inside? Haymitch and Katniss, two sides of the same broken coin. So when that man decides to tear the games apart from the inside, who does the capital hand him? Another kid from District 12. At face value, Haymitch and Katniss shouldn't mirror each other as strongly as they do. He's a middle-aged drunk. She's a teenage hunter. But here's the real question. Why does their relationship feel less mentor-student and more two halves of the same experiment the capital ran 25 years apart? Start with the basics. Both grow up in the seam. Both become the primary providers for their families long before the reaping. And both are thrown into the arena by forces they can't control. Haymitch is reaped into a quarter quell designed to be unwinnable. Katniss volunteers into a games rigged, politically, around her from the second she says, "I volunteer." Different years, same trap. The reason that matters is simple. The capital keeps testing District 12 to see what happens when you push the poorest district to its breaking point. So why is their first real interaction such a disaster? You remember that train scene? Haymitch is drunk, falling off the stage, making crude jokes. Katniss responds by throwing a knife into the table, pinning his hand. She sees uselessness. He sees another doomed tribute who still believes the arena is just about weapons and trees. There is a lot to uncover here. He's already played the real game. Politics, sponsors, narrative. She hasn't. His cruelty is armor. Her hostility is panic with a spine. This is where we talk about how respect sneaks in sideways. In the arena, Katniss listens when he sends sponsor gifts as coded messages. Water delayed means you're near a source. Burn cream means play up the star-crossed lovers. She proves she can read him. He proves he's been paying attention. By the time she pulls out the night lock with Peter, they've executed a joint move. Her instinct to protect Peter, plus his willingness to gamble on public outrage. Together, they force Snow into a promise he never wanted to make, that two victors from the same district can walk out alive. But that partnership cuts both ways. Katniss's impulsive rebellion, shooting the apple, singing to Rue, the berries, keeps triggering Haymitch's trauma. He remembers what happened the last time he embarrassed the capital. His mother, brother, and girlfriend murdered after his victory. No wonder he keeps telling her, remember who the real enemy is, while also trying to slow her down. He's running a cautious long game. She keeps lighting matches in a room full of gas. And yet, that tension is exactly what shapes the rebellion. Intergenerationally, Haymitch is the failed Mockingjay. He broke the arena but couldn't break the system. Survival was the only win he had left. Katniss is the next iteration of that same code. His scars, his strategies, his refusal to be fully broken, all of that makes her rebellion possible. So what happens when the capital decides to drag both of them back into the arena and aim them at each other? Haymitch and Peter, the student who learns the darkest lessons. The arena answer is, you make them share a mentor. Haymitch walks into the reaping for the 74th games, and he already knows which tribute is the problem. It's not the girl with the bow. It's the baker's son who throws bread to a starving stranger, and means it. At face value, Peter is the soft one, but Haymitch spots the real weapon immediately. Charm, empathy, and an instinct for audience psychology that most victors never touch. You see it on the train. Katniss is cataloguing threats. Peter is cataloguing people. He remembers names, studies Effie, clocks Haymitch's patterns. When he volunteers to train separately, it sounds emotional. Here's the real question. Who does that separation actually serve? Haymitch knows the capital loves a story more than a sword, so he leans straight into the one Peter can sell better than anyone. This is where we talk about the star-crossed lovers. On paper, it's a survival strategy. Two District 12 tributes performing doomed romance to pull sponsors, shift odds, and turn the games into a serialized drama instead of a slaughter. But Haymitch doesn't just approve the narrative. He scripts it, times it, and then trusts Peter to carry the emotional weight. The confession on Caesar's stage, the hand-holding, the cave scenes. Those are tactical beats in a screenplay Haymitch is directing from the sidelines. That part matters because the weapon here isn't just Peter's smile. It's his goodness. His refusal to be cruel becomes marketable content. The capital eats it up. The districts project hope onto it. And Haymitch keeps pushing, because for once in 24 years, the strategy is working. But there is a lot to uncover here. Peter becomes the face of a narrative he doesn't fully control, echoing what happened to Haymitch after his own victory, when the boy who broke the force field got repackaged as a drunken joke instead of a political problem. So why does the quarter quell hit him so hard? Snow's twist, reaping from the pool of existing victors, forces Haymitch to weaponize that same narrative again. Only this time, the endgame is rebellion, not survival. He chooses alliances, feeds Peter lines, and quietly plans to keep the Mockingjay alive. The unspoken cost is brutal. Peter becomes expendable. When the arena explodes and the hovercraft takes Katniss but not Peter, you're watching Snow run the same play he used on Haymitch's mother, brother, and girlfriend, punish the victor through the people they tried to protect. Haymitch's guilt after Peter's capture isn't just mental regret, it's déjà vu. He handed another boy from District 12 to the capital's story machine, and this time the torture is televised through hijacked memories and weaponized interviews. We're going to cover how those broadcasts function as public execution without a body. But here's the key. Peter is the one tribute who fully inherits Haymitch's understanding that stories can save you or dismantle you from the inside. So when Peter comes back altered, turning his words into blades instead of shields, what does that do to the man who taught him how powerful a story could be? Architect of the escape, Haymitch's hidden hand in the 75th games. So when Peter's words come back poisoned, Haymitch is staring at his own weapon turned against him. But here's the real question. What do you do when the story you built to protect a victor is now being used to destroy her? This is where we talk about the 75th games, because on paper it's Snow's masterstroke. Drag the victors back in, turn the quarter quell into a public execution, and prove that even the untouchable winners are still property of the capital. But under the surface, Haymitch is already rewriting the script. The arena isn't a stage for punishment anymore, it's an extraction mission. At face value, the alliance in the clock arena looks chaotic. Finnick swoops in, Mags sacrifices herself, Johanna attacks Katniss, Beatty is obsessing over wire and lightning. You can read it as desperate victors improvising, or you can see Haymitch's fingerprints on every move. We're going to cover how this wasn't an alliance for mutual survival. It was a bodyguard rotation around one girl from District 12. The secret is that almost everyone knows more than Katniss. Plutarch, now head game maker, is in on it. So are Finnick, Beatty, Johanna, even Wirus and Mags by extension. The one person who doesn't know the full plan, the supposed Mockingjay. That part matters because Snow is watching her every flinch, every hesitation, every stray glance at a camera. If she suspects an extraction, he might see it in her eyes before Beatty ever touches the force field. So Haymitch does something brutal. He withholds. He lets Katniss walk into the games believing her only mission is to keep Peter alive, not realizing that almost every ally has been instructed to keep her breathing at all costs. It's cruel on a personal level, but strategically it's genius. Her reactions stay genuine, her grief is real, her confusion is impossible to fake, and that authenticity keeps Snow looking at her emotions instead of the moving parts around her. Look at who Haymitch picks. Finnick, charismatic, lethal, and already entangled with capital secrets. The perfect shield who can charm cameras and kill careers in the same breath. Johanna, volatile enough to sell a betrayal, steady enough to carve the tracker out of Katniss's arm in the rain without breaking. Beatty, the quiet mind Haymitch recognizes instantly, the one who can do with wires what Haymitch once did with a force field and a thrown axe. And that's the echo Snow never sees coming. Decades earlier, Haymitch turned his arena's invisible edge into a weapon and humiliated the capital. Now he's betting Beatty can do it at scale, not just bouncing one axe, but using the entire environmental system as a circuit to punch a hole in the sky. There is a lot to uncover here about their relationship to the games' technology, but the core is simple. Haymitch trusts the arena more than he trusts any capital promise. Here's the part we underestimate. If Beatty's plan fails, if the lightning misses, if Katniss's arrow doesn't connect, Haymitch loses everything. He's exposed as a traitor, Plutarch is revealed, the Allied victors are slaughtered, and all those years of playing the drunk, useless mentor become meaningless. The capital doesn't just kill you for that, they erase you. So when the force field shatters, and the hovercraft that appears isn't Capital White, but Rebel, you're not just watching a twist. You're watching the payoff of 25 years of one victor pretending he'd stopped playing the game. But if Haymitch is willing to gamble his entire survival on Katniss, the next question is why? What does he see in her that makes her worth more than his own life, and how far is he prepared to go to turn one angry hunter into a symbol the districts will follow? Hope versus fear. Why the capital never just killed Haymitch. And that's where President Snow's favorite speech comes in. We're going to cover one of the most important lines in the entire series. Snow telling Seneca Crane, "Hope, it is the only thing stronger than fear. A little hope is effective. A lot of hope is dangerous." That part matters because it's not just about Katniss. It's the operating system for the games, for every victor, and especially for Haymitch. So here's the real question. If Haymitch is such a dangerous mind, if Snow personally ordered his family killed for embarrassing the Capitol during the 50th Games, why not finish the job? Why not do to Haymitch what he did to his mother, his brother, his girlfriend, and quietly erase the problem? At face value, it sounds simple. One drunk mentor from District 12 disappears in the night, and the games roll on. But this is where we talk about the illusion the Capitol is selling. The games only work if the districts believe two things at the same time: that the Capitol is terrifying, and that the system is at least technically fair. You suffer, you might die, but if you win, you're rewarded. Kill a victor outright, and you puncture that promise in front of everyone. You're not just punishing one man, you're telling every district child who stares at the screen, even if you win, we can still take everything. That doesn't create obedience. That creates despair. And Snow has already told us, too much fear without hope doesn't control people. It breaks them in the wrong direction. So Haymitch becomes something else. Controlled hope, living proof that even a scrawny tribute from 12 can outthink careers, outlast a quarter quell, and technically beat the arena. The Capitol can point to him and say, "See, the games are brutal, but they're fair. Anyone can win." But then you look closer at the relationship between that promise and his reality. His house is decayed. He's drunk on every broadcast he mentors alone for 24 years, sending child after child to their deaths. The Capitol gives him a mansion and then makes sure we watch him slowly rot inside it. That contradiction is the point. A little hope, he free, is carefully denied. Here's the twist. Haymitch learns to weaponize that tension. By refusing to play the grateful victor, he turns himself into walking evidence that the reward is poisoned. Every slurred insult, every public stumble, every time he calls the games what they are, he's quietly asking the districts a question. If this is victory, what does that say about the system? There is a lot to uncover here, because Snow can't kill him without shattering the illusion, but he also can't control him without giving him a platform. So Haymitch lives in that narrow, dangerous space where hope and fear collide, and he knows exactly how to use it. The next step is seeing how he takes that same strategy and applies it to Katniss, turning one angry hunter into proof that the Capitol's promise can be broken from the inside. The Capitol's biggest flaw: you can't fully own someone who knows the trick. So when Haymitch tells Katniss he can turn one angry hunter into proof the Capitol's promise can be broken, he's not guessing. He's speaking from experience, because here's the real question. What was Haymitch's actual crime in the 50th Games? Was it killing a career with a clever move? Or was it treating the arena as a problem to solve instead of a god to obey? At face value, the force field trick is just strategy. He maps the edge, tests the barrier, realizes it throws things back. Then he weaponizes it. The rock rebounds, the last tribute dies, and the audience gets a brutal, satisfying finish. But that part matters because of what's happening under the surface. Haymitch has just reframed the entire relationship between tribute and arena. It's not fate, it's code. Once you see the arena as hackable, you can't unsee it. And there is a lot to uncover here. The Capitol needs the games to feel mystical, inevitable, ordained. You step in, you suffer, you die or you win. But the rules are sacred. Haymitch's win says, no, the rules are written by fallible people in a control room. If you can read their patterns, you can break them. That knowledge doesn't make him safe, but it does make him less afraid. When you know the capital can be outsmarted, their threats stop feeling absolute. They can still hurt you, but they're no longer omnipotent. That's the shift Snow can't tolerate. Haymitch comes home understanding that the games are just another machine of control, and once you see the machinery, the fear loses some of its shine. You can hear that in every bitter joke he makes about sponsors, about mentors, about how the odds are never actually in anyone's favor. And he's not alone. This is where we talk about the other people who see the trick. Katniss with the berries doesn't just choose death. She exposes the win condition as negotiable. Beatty with the wire doesn't just follow the arena. He rewrites it, turning the force field itself into a weapon. Plutarch literally defects from the game maker's table, proving that even the architects know the system can be reprogrammed from the inside. We're going to cover Snow's response, because that's the reason his retaliation against Haymitch is so personal. Killing his mother, brother, and girlfriend isn't random cruelty. It's targeted debugging. Snow is trying to patch the exploit by re-establishing fear. Sure, you can beat the arena, but you will never beat me. The message to every district is brutal in its simplicity. Outsmart the games, and I will erase your life. So where does that leave Haymitch? Is he truly unbreakable, or just broken in a way the capital can't fully use anymore? He drinks, he sabotages, he refuses to play the grateful victor. Yet, under all that damage, he keeps choosing to exploit the same flaw he discovered as a teenager. And when the quarter quell arrives, you see exactly how dangerous someone becomes when they've known the trick for 25 years. And finally find tributes who can run it with him. Trauma, addiction, and agency. Is Haymitch still choosing to fight? Haymitch keeps the capital at arm's length with a bottle in his hand. But here's the real question. Where does trauma end and choice begin for someone the games have already eaten alive? At face value, it's tempting to do the comforting rewrite in your head. He's not really an alcoholic. He's just pretending. He's secretly fine. The text will not let you do that. This is a man who wakes up in his own vomit, who can't stay sober long enough to meet the new tributes, whose house in Victor's village is decayed while every other mansion stands showroom ready. The relationship between Haymitch and alcohol isn't a quirky Victor coping mechanism. It's an addiction that's killing him. So why does that matter for his agency? Because it's easy to say, well, he's broken, so nothing he does counts. The story refuses that out. He didn't choose the double-sized quarter quell. He didn't choose to watch his mother, brother, and girlfriend murdered because he exposed the arena's force field. But this is where we talk about what he does with the wreckage. He chooses to weaponize what's left of him. Any year after his games, he could have checked out completely. Mentor in name only, drink until the train stops, give bad advice on purpose, and let the capital system run on autopilot. And for a long time, that's almost what he does. But notice the cracks. He keeps watching, he studies every arena, he remembers sponsors, patterns, which districts send careers and which send children who are already starving. There is a lot to uncover here, because that part matters, because it tells you his brain never actually leaves the games. Pattern interrupt. If Haymitch truly wanted to die, the easiest path would be obedience. Smile on camera, sell the fantasy, stop making trouble. Instead, he agrees to mentor Katniss and Peter seriously the moment he realizes they might actually win. He trains them to perform for sponsors. He withholds information when it protects the long game. He risks Snow's wrath by coordinating with District 13 and other victors behind the scenes. Those are not the choices of someone who has surrendered all agency. And the narrative does not romanticize any of this. Haymitch hurts people. He screams at Katniss. He hits emotional pressure points. He disappears into alcohol when they need him sober. His cruelty pushes Peter toward the Capitol's cameras. His secrecy nearly costs lives in the Courtequelle arena. He is not a noble martyr suffering beautifully for the cause. He is a liability and an asset at the same time. So why call him unbreakable at all? Because his unbreakable quality isn't invulnerability, it's the stubborn, messy decision to keep playing the long game even when he doesn't really want to live. Every year he mentors, every plan he joins is another tiny refusal to give the Capitol what it wants most. A victor who finally stops fighting. And that decision sets up exactly why his partnership with Katniss and what comes next changes the entire balance of power. Haymitch versus Finnick versus Katniss. Who is Panem's most tragic victor? And that partnership is where things get really uncomfortable, because once you put Haymitch next to Finnick and Katniss, you start to see a pattern the Capitol never wants you to name. We're going to cover something that sounds simple on paper. Who is Panem's most tragic victor? But here's the real question. What does tragic even mean in a system designed to grind you down 3 different ways at once? Start with Finnick. At face value, he's the Capitol's favorite success story. Gorgeous, charming, a prodigy who wins his games at 14 and becomes a celebrity overnight. But that part matters because the Capitol doesn't reward him for surviving. It rents him out. His beauty becomes a weapon they turn on him, forcing him into sexual exploitation under the threat of killing the people he loves. Mags, Annie, the unnamed families he trades secrets to protect, those relationships are his real arena. When Snow has Annie captured and uses Mag's sacrifice as emotional leverage, you realize Finnick's prizes were just more tools to hurt him. Then there's Katniss, the one person who might argue she never volunteered to be anything except a big sister from a coal district. Her tragedy is being turned into a symbol against her will. The Capitol tries to make her a romantic prop. The rebellion turns her into the Mockingjay. Either way, she's an image first, a person second. She loses Prim to the very kind of weapon she thought she was helping to end. And even after the games are technically over, she can't escape them. Nightmares, trigger points, the constant question of who's scripting her life now, if anyone. So where does that leave Haymitch? His story starts earlier, but the pattern is the same. He humiliates the Capitol on live TV by using the arena's force field against them, exposing a flaw in their perfect system. The response is surgical. Snow kills his mother, his younger brother, his girlfriend. No warning. No negotiation, just a message. Never make the Capitol look stupid. Then he's forced to mentor for decades, shuttling back and forth between a district that resents him and a Capitol that owns him, sending children to the same fate he barely escaped. Each of them finds a different way to cope. Finnick leans into charm and secrets, weaponizing what was used against him. He turns Capitol gossip into intel. Katniss survives through anger and dissociation, pulling back into that empty Victor's Village house or the woods whenever the cameras close in. Haymitch chooses alcohol and strategic detachment, pretending not to care so he can keep caring where it counts. So who's the most tragic victor to you, and why? Not as a suffering Olympics, but as 3 case studies in how the Capitol customizes cruelty. There is a lot to uncover here about power, performance, and what it costs to keep resisting, and that sets us up to ask how Haymitch, of all people, ends up becoming the quiet center of the rebellion's long game. What if Haymitch had broken the rebellion that never was? So let's flip the board for a second. What if the Capitol actually finished the job and broke Haymitch Abernathy all the way? A compliant victor, a man who believes resistance is pointless, who trades sarcasm for silence and turns his brain off every time a train leaves District 12. Here's the real question. What does Panem look like if that's the Haymitch who greets Katniss and Peter? You get a 74th games with no testing, no hard truths, no "you call that a kiss" strategy sessions. He hands them the standard script, shrugs, lets Effie handle the schedule. At face value, he's still doing his job. He shows up at the parade, he nods through training, he raises a glass in the Capitol. But that part matters because without his brutal assessment and targeted advice, Katniss never weaponizes the star-crossed lovers angle in time, Peter never learns how to work an audience, and the sponsors never fully bite. No real mentorship means no unified plan in the arena. Katniss and Peter go in as two scared kids from a non-career district, not a coordinated act. Maybe Peter still joins the careers, but there's no deeper strategy behind it. No expectation that Haymitch is reading the arena and sending help. When Katniss blows up the supplies, there's no invisible partner in the sky adjusting gifts to nudge her toward Peter, toward that final Berry's decision. The games end with a single victor from elsewhere, or a messy double death the Capitol spins as a tragic malfunction, not a rebellion spark. Fast forward to the Quarter Quell. We're going to cover this more later, but this is where we talk about the difference one damaged mind can make. A broken, obedient Haymitch doesn't spend months building a secret alliance with District 4, 7, 11. There is no coordinated plan to break the arena, no synchronized move toward the force field, no hovercraft timed to scoop Katniss out as a living symbol. The Quell becomes exactly what Snow wants: a purge of inconvenient victors, broadcast as justice. Back home, District 12 feels that absence every single day. Instead of a semi-defiant victor slumped on a porch, muttering insults about the Capitol, you have a model citizen in Victor's village. He does the talk shows, he praises the games, he attends reaping celebrations with a tight smile and no visible resentment. Why would a starving teenager volunteer if the only victor they've ever seen never once pushes back, never once signals that the system is rotten? Snow, of course, rewards this. More Capitol appearances, more scripted interviews about the promise of hope and how the games changed his life. Less need to bomb District 12 into ash because there's no Mockingjay to punish, no mentor quietly feeding information to a rebellion. The relationship between Victor and District freezes in place, stagnant, numb, obedient. And that's the point. Even a compromised, self-destructive Haymitch is the difference between a slow, hopeless Panem and the chain reaction that births a revolution. So what happens when that kind of fragile resistance spreads beyond one drunk in Victor's village? Haymitch as prototype Mockingjay, the rebellion before the rebellion. So when does that fragile resistance stop being an accident and start looking like a prototype Mockingjay? You don't begin with a flaming dress. You begin with a boy from 12 who refuses to die on schedule. Haymitch's Quarter Quell isn't just a brutal games with twice the tributes. It's an early, quieter Berry's moment. On live television, he figures out the arena's force field, maps its edge, and then uses it to kill the final career by turning the environment back on the Capitol's design. At face value, it's just clever survival. But here's the real question. What does it mean when a tribute shows the entire country that the arena itself can be hacked? That part matters because the Capitol's whole promise is control. They build the arena, they write the script, they decide who dies and how. When Haymitch weaponizes their tech against him, he exposes the same pressure point Katniss hits with the Nightlock berries. The games only work as long as everyone believes the rules are unbreakable. You watch him on that broadcast, and suddenly there's a new question in the back of every district's mind. If the force field can be turned, what else can be? Snow understands that instantly. That's why the retaliation is so personal. Killing Haymitch's mother, brother, and girlfriend after the victory isn't random cruelty. It's a warning label slapped on the footage. This is where we talk about the cost of cleverness narrative the Capitol wants. Yes, he won, but look what happens when you embarrass power. The relationship between Victor and District is supposed to be aspirational. Haymitch turns it into a cautionary tale the capital can't fully control. And then they make a long-term mistake. They send him back to District 12 and park him in Victor's village for decades. On paper, it's a reward. In practice, his very existence is a glitch in the system. Every child in 12 grows up knowing there is a Victor on the hill who beat the games in a way the capital never forgave. He's drunk, he's hostile, his house is decaying while the rest of the seam rots in coal dust. So why keep him visible? Because they need the symbol of hope more than they fear the reminder of failure. There is a lot to uncover here. His open contempt for the capital, the way he refuses to play the grateful celebrity, the constant public misery. Those are tiny, daily acts of rebellion. He doesn't smile on command. He insults Effie. He mentors badly on purpose until someone forces him to care. He turns every interview into a risk Snow has to manage. Now put yourself in Katniss's boots. Your only Victor is a walking argument that the capital's promises are a scam. Win, and they still own you. Win cleverly, and they punish everyone you love. No wonder she's skeptical from the start. Before Cinna ever sets a dress on fire, Haymitch has already set her worldview on fire. So by the time a girl with a bow and a handful of berries steps into the arena, the rebellion isn't starting from zero. It's building on a broadcast decades earlier when one sarcastic boy from District 12 proved the script could be rewritten and survived just long enough to teach the next Mockingjay how. Redemption for a broken Victor. What winning looks like for Haymitch. So what does that actually earn him? Because Haymitch is one of the few rebellion architects who doesn't get a clean cinematic payoff. No grand speech on a balcony. No blaze of glory death in the capital's streets. No tearful "I'm better now" moment where he pours the liquor down the drain and walks into the sunrise. At face value, that almost feels unfair, right? But here's the real question. What does winning even look like for a Victor the capital already broke? By the end of Mockingjay, Haymitch is still drinking, he's still sharp-tongued, still making bad calls, still waking up with decades of dead District 12 kids in his head. That part matters because it refuses the fantasy that trauma in Panem can just be patched over with a revolution and some therapy sessions. The game's carved into him. The rebellion doesn't erase that, it just gives the pain a different job. So where's the redemption? It's smaller, quieter, but it's there. He helps design the Quarter Quell escape plan. He's the one juggling secret phone calls, rebel promises, and a capital that's watching his every move. He doesn't get the spotlight, but without his strategy, there is no arena break, no Mockingjay, no final push to topple the capital. Haymitch goes from being the boy who exposed the force field to the man who helps blow the whole system open. And then, the aftermath. District 12 is ashes, except for Victor's village. He comes home to a graveyard of a district and a handful of intact houses that were always meant to be a monument to the capital's promise. Now they're something else. Over time, 12 is rebuilt. People return. There are children in the square again. Haymitch lives long enough to see that, to walk through a district that isn't starving under Snow's boot. That's not nothing. We're going to cover this more when we talk about Katniss and Peter's ending, but pay attention to their relationship with him. They survive. They have a life, however fragile. In the books, Katniss notes that Haymitch sends them geese, trades, stays in orbit. He is messy, unreliable, frequently drunk, but he is there. After 24 years of sending kids to their deaths, he finally mentors a pair who make it out and stay out. This is where we talk about relational redemption. Haymitch doesn't fix himself, he breaks the pattern. The games end. District 12's children will never stand on that stage again. The next generation will grow up hearing stories about arenas without ever seeing one. His victory isn't internal peace. it's interruption. There is a lot to uncover here because it's a more honest version of healing in Panem. Some people don't get better. Some scars never close, but they can still drag the world to a place where other kids don't have to earn a mansion on a hill by killing. And in a story obsessed with survival, that might be the only kind of redemption that really counts. So if Haymitch is the broken victor who breaks the cycle, what does that make him in the new Panem? A relic or a warning? Reading Haymitch's final scenes, silence, survival, and what goes unsaid. So when we jump to that epilogue meadow, years after the war, you might expect Haymitch to be gone, dead, disappeared, or entombed in some capital monument to heroic victors. Instead, he's just there, down the road in Victor's village. Chickens, geese, a bottle in his hand, orbiting Katniss and Peter's new family without ever stepping fully into the frame. At face value, that can read as a quiet background detail. Of course, Haymitch stayed in District 12. Where else would he go? But here's the real question. Why is this man, who spent decades being paraded on trains and talk shows, now written into the story as a permanent side character in his own life? There is a lot to uncover here. First, his simple presence in that era is its own kind of rebellion. He outlives Snow. He outlives the arenas. He outlives the games as an institution. The Capitol's whole retaliation strategy, murdering his mother, his brother, his girlfriend, was built on the assumption that survival would become a curse, not a victory. Haymitch was supposed to drink himself into an early grave, a cautionary tale for every district watching. Instead, he's still standing when the cameras are gone. That part matters because the system never wanted victors to see a world without games. The promise was always twisted: win and you get comfort, but you never get out. Haymitch breaks that, not with a final speech, but by doing something far more dangerous to a regime built on spectacle. He just keeps living. Notice what he doesn't get. There's no tribunal scene where someone apologizes for killing his family. No public medal for masterminding the Quarter Quell escape. No tearful reunion with long-lost relatives. No statue in the square. We're going to cover how some characters are given narrative closure, but this is where we talk about deliberate absence. The new government doesn't put Haymitch on a podium, it lets him fade into the ordinary routines of a half-rebuilt district. Is that neglect or mercy? The text doesn't spell it out, and that silence is doing work. After a lifetime of being watched, first by the Capitol, then by the rebellion, Haymitch finally occupies a space where nobody needs him to perform. No mentor role, no secret strategist, no forced talent for the cameras. Just a man who feeds his birds, visits Katniss and Peter, and goes home to his too big house. You can read his quiet as resignation, but you can also read it as a choice. For a victor whose entire identity was weaponized, choosing not to narrate, not to testify, not to turn his pain into content for a new regime, is its own refusal. Why should he give another system the story it wants? In that sense, the most radical gift Haymitch gets isn't justice. It's the right to be boring, to be the slightly embarrassing uncle on the edge of the picnic, instead of the tragic genius on center stage. In a world where children once watched him on replay to learn how to survive, his greatest legacy might be that Katniss's kids will only ever know him as the neighbor with the geese. But if his story ends in ordinary silence, what does that say about the stories Panem chooses to remember, and the ones it quietly buries? Why Haymitch matters. The victor the Capitol could never fully script, so when the story buries him in that quiet house with the geese, here's the real question. Why does a man the narrative keeps shoving to the edge end up being the key to understanding the games, the rebellion, and Katniss herself? At face value, Haymitch is the drunk uncle of Panem, but pull back and you see the Capitol's worst-case scenario. He is their failed project. the victor who refuses to become the story they want him to be. He wins the 50th quarter quell, does the interviews, plays his part on stage, and then uses the arena's own force field to make the Capitol look stupid on live TV. That part matters because it breaks the promise at the core of Snow's system that the Capitol always controls the script. Snow's response is brutal and petty. He doesn't just punish Haymitch, he erases his future, mother, brother, girlfriend, all murdered after the games. So what do you do when the reward for surviving is losing everyone you are trying to survive for? The Capitol expects him to either become a compliant celebrity or a clean martyr. Instead, he chooses something messier. He keeps breathing, he keeps mentoring, he keeps failing in public, but he refuses to give them a neat narrative. This is where we talk about those 24 years of mentoring. Every year, 2 more kids from District 12. Every year, 2 more dead. From the Capitol's perspective, Haymitch is an asset, the seasoned victor who can sell the games, train tributes, keep the ratings up. From his perspective, he's trapped in an endless loop of reaping day. The bottle becomes his way of surviving a job that is literally designed to break him. Is it healthy? No. Is it politically meaningless? Also no, because here's the twist. That bottle you read as failure is also a prop in an ongoing refusal. He never turns into Caesar Flickerman. He never becomes the charming Capitol pet. He slurs, he insults, he pushes back. He makes himself hard to use. And underneath the mess, he's still working, reading arenas, spotting allies, quietly aligning with District 13, and helping design the quarter-quell escape that turns Katniss into the Mockingjay. So what lesson do you take from a character who is both indispensable and deeply compromised? Survival under oppression is not clean. It's not the pure poster-ready resistance the Capitol, and honestly, audiences, prefer. It's ugly coping mechanisms, bad decisions, and people who are heroic in one scene and unbearable in the next. But in Panem, that kind of survival is still politically powerful because it keeps producing problems the Capitol can't fully solve. Once you see Haymitch this way, the whole series snaps into sharper focus. The games stop being only Katniss's nightmare and become a decades-long war on one district's stubborn refusal to play along. The rebellion stops looking spontaneous and starts looking prepared. Even Katniss's story changes, because you realize she's not the first spark. She's the moment a long, quiet burn finally hits air. So, if the Capitol could never fully script Haymitch, here's the real question for us. Whose story about him are we still believing? Theirs or his? Your turn in the victor's village. Who is Panem's most unbreakable survivor? So if the Capitol could never fully script Haymitch, here's the real question for you. Is he actually the most unbreakable victor in Panem? Or are we giving him a title that really belongs to Katniss, Peter, or Finnick? Because when you zoom out from one drunk mentor in District 12 and start comparing victors across the map, there is a lot to uncover here. Katniss burns the Capitol on live TV with those berries. Peter rewrites the narrative every time he opens his mouth, turning a love story into a weapon. Finnick weaponizes secrets the way other tributes use knives. So who's unbreakable are we talking about? And what does that even mean in a world built on the games? This is where we talk about you, sitting in your own metaphorical victor's village, scrolling through Panem's history. When you think about Haymitch, what's the first word that comes to mind? Tragic, heroic, complicit, or all three stacked on top of each other until they're impossible to separate? Do you see him as the man who saved District 12's last tributes? Or the man who spent 24 years sending children to their deaths? Both can be true. That part matters because the Capitol's entire system depends on forcing people into roles that never quite fit. So tell me in the comments, where did your relationship with Haymitch actually change? Was it the first time you read about the 50th quarter quell and realized he wasn't just a bitter mentor, but a teenager who outsmarted a force field the Capitol thought it controlled? Was it watching his mentoring style with Katniss and Peter, all that fake apathy hiding razor-sharp strategy? Or was it the quiet rebellion planning, when you realize he's been building an escape route through the arena for years while pretending to be useless? At face value, he's a cautionary tale about what victory really costs. But here's the real question. When you put him next to Katniss volunteering for Prim, Peter choosing compassion in the arena, or Finnick exposing Snow on live broadcasts, who feels most unbreakable to you and why? Is it the one who keeps fighting publicly, or the one who keeps fighting at all after the cameras go home? If you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, we're going to cover more victors and more systems. You can jump next into a deep dive on Finnick and the Capitol's weaponized intimacy, or into a breakdown of all three quarter quells as a blueprint for control. Each one rewrites what you thought the games promised their winners. And as you're choosing where to go next, hold on to this. In Panem, unbreakable never means untouched by pain. It means you choose, again and again, to fight with whatever you still have. Your mind, your story, your secrets, or just the fact that you're still here. Bonus deep cut. Haymitch's humor as a weapon against despair, and one of the sharpest weapons Haymitch still has. His mouth. On the surface, it's just the drunk in the corner muttering insults. But here's the real question. Why does a man who's lost everyone still bother to make jokes at all? Why waste breath on sarcasm when the games have already taken everything else? This is where we talk about Haymitch's humor as armor and as a knife. At face value, he's just mean. He calls Katniss and Peter sweetheart and lover boy with this acid sweetness that makes Effie flinch. He tells them, "You're not off to a real good start," right after they almost die of nerves on the train. He watches the Capitol's parade costumes and basically goes, "The more ridiculous the outfit, the better the odds." He treats the entire pageant as a rigged joke, and he says the quiet part out loud. There is a lot to uncover here. In traumatized communities, gallows humor shows up for a reason. When you can't stop the bombing, the reaping, or the next quarter quell, you can at least decide how you're going to talk about it. You twist the horror into a punchline, not because it's funny, but because it's the only way to touch it without screaming. That part matters because it's a tiny reclaiming of power. If you can name the nightmare and make other people snort, even for half a second, the nightmare isn't the only thing in the room anymore. Watch how Haymitch uses that with the Capitol. When he mocks Effie's obsession with schedules and manners, he's not just being rude to a co-worker, he's quietly saying, "Your etiquette can't wallpaper over the murder of children." When he calls out the absurdity of stylists and interviews, he's puncturing the story the Capitol is selling, that the games are a glamorous opportunity instead of a public execution. Every sarcastic comment is a pin in Snow's balloon, and yet his humor isn't invincible. We see moments where the joke just dies. When Katniss and Peter volunteer to eat the berries, Haymitch doesn't quip. He panics. When they return as dual victors, he snaps at them, then drinks alone. The sarcasm can't keep up with the scale of what's happening. Those silences are important. They show you the limit of laughter as protection. Underneath the insults is a man who watched his family murdered for outsmarting the arena once. But he never stops reaching for language the Capitol can't fully script. That's the point. They can write his victory tour speeches, they can dress him, they can shove him in front of cameras. They cannot fully control how he frames it in the moment. Every slurred, cutting remark is proof that there's still a part of Haymitch the games didn't domesticate. And that raises a new question. What happens when that weaponized humor finally gets pointed, on purpose, at the system itself? This is where we talk about the part of Haymitch the Capitol never quite got its hands on. You can strip a victor of family, safety, even dignity on screen. But here's the real question. What happens if you never manage to rewrite his sense of right and wrong? At face value, Haymitch looks amoral. He drinks, he insults children before they go to the games, he treats mentoring like a chore he's late for. But watch what he doesn't do. He never volunteers a kid from 12. He never turns Reaping Day into that career-style pageant you see in 1 and 2, never sells the games as a path to glory or a promise of a better life. When Effie chirps about opportunity, he's the one rolling his eyes. He refuses to pretend this system is fair, even when the cameras are begging for that narrative. So why does that matter? Because mentors are supposed to be the capital's mouthpieces in the districts. They're the proof that the deal works. Survive, play along, and you get to help choose the next lucky tribute. Haymitch quietly breaks that relationship. He'll train you to stay alive, but he will not teach you to love the arena. That part matters because it's a line he holds for 24 years, long before Katniss ever raises 3 fingers in the air. Then Snow gives him a new test. Katniss and Peter, the star-crossed victors the Capitol wants to own. Haymitch could have sold them out easily, handed over every rebellious impulse in exchange for a safer, softer life. Instead, he does something much colder and much kinder. He keeps them partially in the dark. He lets them be furious at him on the train, in the training center, in the arena itself, rather than risk tipping the rebellion's hand. Why? Because if Snow thinks Haymitch is sloppy, selfish, and drunk, he looks everywhere but where the real plan is. We're going to cover his cowardice as a tactic more later, but notice how far he takes it. He lets his own district believe he's a joke. He lets Effie scold him on national television. He hides any trace of strategic genius behind a bottle. That's not pride, that's a sacrifice. His reputation goes on the altar so the people he's chosen to protect don't have to. And when genuine cruelty hits, the mask slips. Watch his face when Peter is hijacked, when the Capitol parade of torture is finally visible. The sarcasm dries up. The outrage is raw. This isn't abstract politics. This is his worst nightmare replayed on someone else's body. There is a lot to uncover here about trauma repetition. But the simple version is, he cannot stand watching the Capitol break another boy he loves. So where does that leave his moral code? Battered, but intact. He will lie, manipulate, and hurt your feelings. He will not help the Capitol break you. That's the line. And the next question is, what happens when a man with those rules is finally given a real battlefield again? Haymitch in fandom, misread drunk or secret mastermind. And this is where we talk about you. Because for years, fandom treated Haymitch almost exactly the way the Capitol wanted the districts to treat him. As a joke. You remember those early movie-only takes? Haymitch is the drunk who falls off the stage, the useless mentor who barely shows up, the comic relief who exists to stumble through scenes so Katniss can roll her eyes. At face value, that reading makes sense. The camera meets him with a bottle in his hand and vomit on his shoes. He slurs, he insults, he naps through strategy sessions. If you only watch the first film, why would you see anything beyond that? The games need a town drunk to underline how hopeless District 12 is. Haymitch becomes that visual shorthand. But here's the real question. What happens once you add the books back in? Suddenly that same man is the lone mentor in Panem who has been sending children to die for 24 straight years. You learn about the 50th quarter quell, the doubled tributes, the force field twist. You watch teenage Haymitch weaponize the arena against the Capitol's design, and then watch Snow murder his mother, his brother, his girlfriend in retaliation. There is a lot to uncover here. That part matters because it reframes every useless move. The bottle isn't just a prop, it's armor. The cruelty isn't random, it's triage. Book-informed fandom starts to see him as a trauma survivor and strategist, the quiet center of gravity for the 12 victors. He's the one who understands the games as a system, not just a spectacle, which is why he becomes an emotional linchpin once the rebellion needs a brain. So we're going to cover how fandom ran with that. Meta essays pop up arguing that Haymitch is always 3 moves ahead, choosing when to appear drunk so the Capitol underestimates him, pushing Peter to play up the romance, reading sponsors and game makers the way he once read the force field. Fan theories reframe his worst moments as calculated. Did he ignore Katniss at first to see if she could self-rescue? Did he back Peter's public devotion because he knew one of them had to become a symbol of hope the districts could cling to? Age changes this relationship too. Younger readers often latch on to his failures. Why doesn't he stop drinking? Why is he so mean? Why doesn't he try harder to save every tribute? Older readers circle back on a reread and go, wait, how do you watch 48 children die and stay gentle? The question stops being, why is he broken? And becomes, how is he still functional at all? And the irony is, the existence of all these debates proves the point. Haymitch is built to be misread on first glance, the same way the Capitol misreads him. They see a drunk. The districts see a disappointment. Only on the second, third, fourth pass do you see the man who never stopped playing the games. Which raises the next problem. What happens when that hidden mastermind finally gets a full arena again in the Quarter Quell? Lessons from Haymitch. What his story says about real-world power. So when that hidden mastermind gets an arena again in the Quarter Quell, it's not just a plot twist. It's a case study, because Haymitch's story isn't only about Panem, it's about how power behaves anywhere it thinks it can't be challenged. At face value, the Capitol system feels extreme. Gladiator games, televised death, a drunk victor in a decaying mansion. But here's the real question. Why do so many of their tactics feel familiar? Spectacle to distract you, selective rewards to keep you compliant, targeted punishment to make examples of anyone who steps out of line. That part matters because you can swap out arenas for ratings, victors' parties for corporate perks, and Snow's threats for quieter forms of economic or social punishment, and the structure still makes sense. Haymitch is what survival under that structure looks like when you zoom in. He wins the 50th games by turning the force field against the Capitol's design, and the response is surgical. Snow kills his mother, his brother, his girlfriend. The message is clear. Outthink the system, and it will reach past you to everyone you love. So what does he do? He compromises. He drinks. He mentors badly on purpose. On the surface, it reads as self-destruction. Underneath, it's quiet sabotage. There is a lot to uncover here. He fulfills the bare minimum of his role so the Capitol can keep its narrative, the bitter, broken victor who still shows up for the cameras. But he withholds effort, withholds hope, keeps the odds just bad enough that District 12 never becomes a career factory. He's not storming the Capitol, he's sand in the gears. How many people in our world do the same thing inside harmful institutions, staying just compliant enough to survive while slowing everything down? This is where we talk about what resistance actually looks like. Not everyone gets to be Katniss, flaming dress and perfect speech. Sometimes resistance is just staying alive when the system would rather you disappear. Sometimes it's keeping knowledge alive, the way Haymitch studies every arena, every victor, turning trauma into a private archive the Capitol can't fully control. Sometimes it's choosing a few people and saying, them, I'm not letting the system have them. That's his relationship to Katniss and Peter. We're going to cover more of his strategy in the Quarter Quell. But notice how our judgment shifts. It's easy to praise the clean rebels and condemn the messy survivors. We call fictional characters cowards or sellouts from the safety of the couch, then meet real people trapped in predatory jobs, corrupt politics, or abusive families, and ask, why don't they just leave? The reason is usually the same one Haymitch learns when his family is murdered. Power hits your soft spots first. So one takeaway from his story is simple and uncomfortable. Look closer at the Haymitches around you. The co-worker who drinks too much. The friend who jokes everything off. The relative who gave up on changing anything. They might not be heroes in the poster sense, but they might be carrying maps of the arena you can't see yet. And when the arena changes, when the quarter quell rules drop, and the mask finally slips, those messy survivors are often the ones who already know where the force field is. Closing the file on Haymitch Abernathy, the capital's permanent problem. And that brings us back to the bottle. At face value, it's proof the capital won something. Their quarter quell problem child, their force field genius reduced to a stumbling mentor in a rotting mansion at the edge of a dead coal district. You see the empty bottles in his sink, and you think, there it is. The evidence that the games finally did what they were designed to do. But here's the real question. What if that bottle isn't a monument to failure at all? What if it's a relic of someone who refused to die on their terms? So he found a way to stay alive on his. Because when you zoom out, Haymitch's arc is brutally simple. Sarcastic teen tribute in the 50th games. Traumatized victor whose reward is watching Snow murder his mother, his brother, his girlfriend. Reluctant mentor who has to send 2 more kids from District 12 to their deaths every year. And then, quietly, the mind behind the only plan that cracks the arena open and turns the capital's own system against it. This is where we talk about the relationship between survival and obedience. The capital keeps trying to convert him from one into the other. They want a grateful victor on television, a tidy narrative of triumph, a man who will tell the districts that the promise still holds. Suffer enough, perform well enough, and you might earn your way out. Haymitch never gives them that. He doesn't give them gratitude. He meets their gifts with sarcasm. He doesn't give them obedience. He mentors, but on his terms, sabotaging the spectacle whenever he can. He doesn't even give them a clean story. A victor who hacks the force field, exposes a design flaw, and then spends decades drunk in Victor's village is not the poster Snow ordered. That part matters because Haymitch's existence is a walking spoiler for the capital's whole project. The games can be survived. The arenas can be mapped, read, and hacked. The victors can stop being props and start being co-conspirators. Every time you see him on screen, you're looking at proof that the system is beatable enough that they had to kill his entire family just to make an example. And still, he keeps choosing District 12. He trains Katniss and Peter not to win the games, but to outlast the capital. He signs on with a rebellion he doesn't fully trust because he understands the alternative better than anyone. He's not a symbol in the Mockingjay sense, not a martyr in the sinner sense. He's something rarer. He's a survivor who never lets the people who hurt him have the last word. So when you picture Haymitch at the end, do you see the bottle, or do you see the man who taught Panem where the force field really is? And if the capital's perfect system could be broken once, by one angry boy from a forgotten district, what else in this world of controlled hope is already starting to crack?